2. Selim, Selim, or Drunken. Selim, Ottoman Sultan and Ottoman Sultan. He is the Caliph of Islam. He is the son of Suleiman, the Magnificent, and Hurram Sultan. He received the support of his father by winning the war in Konya against his brother Bayezid, which took its place in history as the Konya Princes' Battle. Following his father's death, he ascended the throne as the 11th Sultan on September 24, 1566, as his only surviving son. As soon as he became Sultan, he made his first trip to the west. The country expanded its borders to Central Europe. Cyprus and Tunisia were among those who surrendered unconditionally. He gave importance to maritime sovereignty by expanding his country's sovereignty in the seas. Captains like Turgut Reis were trained in his time. He had a very powerful vizier like Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, and he was his most important assistant in state affairs. During his time, he not only built various architectural works in Istanbul and many regions of the empire, but also carried out repair activities of important inherited buildings. He had the Selimiye Mosque built in Edirne by Mimar Sinan, the master architect of his time. He died on December 15, 1574, at the age of 50, and was buried in his mausoleum in Hagia Sophia. He did not go on a campaign at the head of the army during his 8-year reign. It is believed that some of the sultans who came after him started a tradition because they did not go on expeditions. He continued his sultanate until his death. Prince Selim's childhood was spent in the Old Palace in Istanbul. On June 27, 1530, he was circumcised with his brothers Prince Mustafa and Prince Mehmed in a week-long entertainment and ceremony in the Horse Square. He stayed in the palace until the age of 16 and received a deep palace education. In 1542, when he was 16 years old, he was appointed as Konya Sanjak Bey. He was appointed as Manisa Sanjak Bey in 1544 and served as Manisa Sanjak Bey until 1558. It is reported that he spent his time in Manisa with entertainment and hunting parties. In 1558, he was appointed to Konya Sanjak Principality again and remained there until 1562. While his father, Suleiman the Magnificent, was alive, especially after 1553, Prince Selim started a struggle for the throne with other princes who could inherit his father. Mustafa, Mahmud, Murad, Mehmed, Abdullah, and Cihangir, the princes of Suleiman the Magnificent, died while their father was alive. Suleiman the Magnificent's wife, Hurram Sultan, to whom he was very devoted, wanted one of her sons, Selim or Bayezid, to be the heir to the throne. In August 1553, while Suleiman the Magnificent was in the Nakhchivan expedition, Prince Mustafa, who participated in that expedition in Konya Eregli, was executed by his father, Suleiman the Magnificent, following the advice of Grand Vizier Rustam Pasha, who was Hurram Sultan's close man. Hurram Sultan's two sons, Prince Bayezid and Selim, were the heirs to the throne. When Hurram Sultan died in 1558, these two brothers started an open struggle with each other. Prince Bayezid, the Sanjak Bey of Amasya, was more aggressive and rebellious. Prince Selim, who appeared to be patient and prudent, won the support of his father. On May 29, 1559, the two princes fought a battle near Konya with their supporters and their own banner army. Prince Selim, who had the support of his father, emerged victorious in this battle. Selim chased the escaping Bayezid to Hinis and returned to Konya. When Bayezid received the news that he and his sons had gone first to Amasya and then to the camp in Üsküdar to attack his father, he took refuge in Iran, in the Safavid Empire, with his army of 2,000 people. Suleiman the Magnificent requested the return of his rebellious son through correspondence with Shah Tahmasp. On September 25, 1561, Shah Tahmasp had the princes in his possession strangled in Qazvin and sent their bodies back, and these corpses were brought to Sivas and buried. Thus, in 1561, Prince Selim, who was Konya Sanjak Bey, remained the only unrivaled crown prince of Suleiman the Magnificent. For this reason, in 1562, he was appointed as the Principality of Kütahya Sanjak, which was closer to the state capital. Prince Selim did not participate in his father's last expedition, the last Austrian expedition of 1566. While Selim was hunting in the Saisanli desert near Kütahya, he learned that his father died on September 7th during the siege of Zigitvar, from a secret letter sent as a conquest by Grand Vizier Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, who hid this death from everyone. He immediately set out for Istanbul with a regiment, along with his Lalas Hüseyin Pasha, Hoka Ataullah, and his accountant Silal Bey. He arrived in Üsküdar on the 30th of September. Everyone was unaware of Sultan Suleiman's death. Bostansi Basi Davut Aga, who came to Üsküdar Pier with his royal boat, was one of the first to recognize Sultan Selim's sultanate and took him to Topkapi Palace with his royal boat. At that time, the sultanate cannons were fired from the shipyard and Tafani, and it was announced to the public that the new sultan had ascended the throne. Sultan Selim paraded from the pavilion pier to the city gate on horseback, wearing special fancy dress, and scattered coins to the people on the way. Arriving at the palace, Selim was placed on the throne and his sovereignty was recognized by the dignitaries in Istanbul, Istanbul Guard Iskender Pasha, Seyhul Islam Ebu Suud Effendi, etc. To cover the expenses incurred during this time, the state treasury was not opened and 50,000 gold lent by her sister Mihrima Sultan was used. Sultan Selim left Istanbul 2 days later to meet the army and his father's funeral. It passed very quickly through Edirne, Plovdiv, and Sofia, and reached Belgrade in 15 days. The death of Suleiman the Magnificent was announced to the army returning from the campaign, 4 ranges from Belgrade, and Sultan Selim welcomed the army, distraught with grief, in Belgrade. After the funeral prayer in Belgrade, Suleiman the Magnificent's body was sent to Istanbul in a hurry. Sultan Selim, who remained in Belgrade, rejected a new enthronement there. The gratuity he distributed to the soldiers was seen as little by the Kapikulu soldiers and was met with anger. Sultan Selim arrived in Edirne in November, and after waiting there and under the rebellious actions of the doormen on the roads, he was able to come to Istanbul in December. Coup. Selim was the first sultan in Ottoman history who was not interested in state administration and did not go on a campaign at the head of his army. He left the administration to Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, the husband of his daughter Esmehan Sultan and a very successful Grand Vizier. In addition, the custom of giving the Kulus grant to the Ilmiye class was first introduced in Sekou. Selim removed it. Sultan Sekou. It is known as the first place that Selim conquered when he became sultan after the death of his father, Suleiman the Magnificent. The troops under the command of Sokolu Mehmed Pasha conquered the island in 1566 and ensured the security of the straits. The island was taken from Venice and the Genoese. There were not many losses on either side. The peace dated 1562, signed during the reign of Suleiman the Magnificent, was broken in 1566, and the Ottoman army punished the aggressive attitude of the Austrian army with the Battle of Zigitvar. During the operation from Manisa to Belgrade to meet the funeral of Sultan Selim's father, Bobaksa Castle on Drava was conquered under the command of Özdemiroglu. Osman Pasha Yemen came under Ottoman rule in 1517 and was definitively annexed to Ottoman territory with Hadim Suleiman Pasha's Indian naval expedition of 1538. When a rebellion broke out in the region in 1567 under the leadership of Zaidi Imam Topal Mutahhar, Özdemiroglu Osman Pasha, and Damascus Beylerbey Lala Mustafa Pasha were appointed as Yemen Serdar in order to re-establish Turkish sovereignty in the region. In the Yemen expedition of 1568, after the Taiz and Cairo castles, the Turkish army conquered Aden on the 15th of May and Sana'a on the 26th of July, and annexed the country back to Ottoman territory. Aceh Sultanate, located in the northwest of Indonesia's Sumatra Island, was one of the targets of the Portuguese, who set their sights on the riches in the region. Unable to withstand the increasing Portuguese pressure, the Aceh Sultan of the time, Alauddin Shah, sent a delegation of ambassadors to Istanbul to ask for help. When the Aceh delegation reached Istanbul in 1566, news came of the death of Suleiman the Magnificent, who was at the Zigetvar expedition at that time. 2. Who succeeded Suleiman the Magnificent to the throne. Selim promised to provide all kinds of assistance to the delegation. In 1569, the Ottoman Navy, consisting of 22 units under the command of the Ottoman Red Sea Fleet Admiral Kurdoglu Hizir Reis, sailed to the Indian Ocean, arrived in Aceh, and delivered the aid. While the Aceh Sultanate was annexed to the Ottoman Empire, it gained the power to attack the Portuguese Russia's annexation of the Kazan Khanate in 1552, and the Astrakhan Khanate in 1556 revealed a Russian threat in the north for the first time. By combining the Don and Volga rivers with a canal and connecting the Black Sea and the Caspian Sea, Sokulu Mehmed Pasha aimed to prevent the Russians from going southwards, as well as to revive the Silk Road trade, to benefit from the navy in the wars with Iran, and to establish contact with the Turkish Khanates in Asia. The works, which were started by Keyfe Bey Qasim Pasha in August 1569, were not successful as a result of Russian attacks, the winter season, and the Crimean Khanate hindering the project. In parallel with the Don-Volga Canal project, the Ottoman Empire also organized an expedition to take back Astrakhan, which had been held by the Russians since 1556. The siege, which started in November 1569 under very adverse weather conditions, ended 16 days after the Russian Tsar Ivan the Terrible sent a force of 20,000 people under the command of Prince Serebyanov to the region and placed the Turkish soldiers between two fires, and the Turkish army had to save itself from the siege by carrying out a breakthrough operation. Crimean Khan Devlet Girey. I thought that the goal of eliminating the Russian threat, which the Ottoman Empire wanted to achieve with the Don-Volga Canal project and the Astrakhan expedition, could be achieved by marching directly to Moscow and disrupting the Russian power. Devlet Girey Khan, who crossed the Oka River and the Serpukhov fortification with an army of 120,000 people, also defeated a resisting Russian army of 6,000 people and came to Moscow. The army, which burned Moscow to the ground on May 24, 1571, returned without damaging the Russian army, although many Russian civilians died. Marching to Moscow again a year later, Khan encountered the Russian army of 60,000 people, 60 kilometers south of Moscow. In the battle fought in Molody between July 30th and August 3rd, the cavalry-dominated Crimean army, which was forced into close combat, suffered a defeat in which it suffered heavy losses and was forced to retreat to Crimea. As a result of these failures, Russia's conquests had to be accepted, and a state began to form that would cause great trouble to the Ottoman Empire in the future. The Ottoman-Venetian War, or the Cyprus Campaign, is the fourth of the Ottoman-Venetian Wars. It was built between the Ottoman Empire and the Republic of Venice between 1570 to 73. In the later period of the war, some states joined the side of Venice. The the Republic of Venice, the Spanish Empire, the Papal State, the Republic of Genoa, the Duchy of Savoy, and the Knights Hospitaller participated in the Holy Alliance, which was formed with the initiatives of Pope Pius V. The Eastern Mediterranean has now become the Ottoman Inland Sea with the conquest of Suleiman the Magnificent. However, Venetian pirates had one last refuge left. We can list the reasons for the conquest of Cyprus as follows. Son of Suleiman the Magnificent II. His will to Selim was, "If it is not possible for us to conquer Cyprus, you should conquer it," upon which the Sekou. Selim's, "If I become Sultan, I will destroy Cyprus to the pirates." He made a promise to his father, Sekou, by Egypt coming from the Mediterranean. Despite Sokulu Mehmet Pasha's objections due to the hijacking of the gift ship sent to Selim by pirates, the confiscation of all gifts and the imprisonment of the crew, and dozens of other reasons, the Ottoman Navy set out on a voyage on May 15, 1570. On May 18, 1570, Kevkaban Castle was conquered. Leftari Castle was captured on the 2nd of July 1570, and Kyrenia Castle was captured on the 9th of July 1570. Nicosia was conquered on the 9th of September 1570, and ultimately the conquest of Cyprus was completed with the surrender of Famagusta Castle on the 1st of August 1571. It was conquered during the conquest of Cyprus in 1571, when the fleet landed in the Mediterranean. The command of the conquest was made by Sokolu Mehmed Pasha. The conquest of Cyprus by the Turkish army had a significant impact in Western Europe. With the instigation of Venice, a holy alliance was formed, including the Spanish, Genoese, Papal, and Knights of Malta navies. The Ottoman fleet under the command of Redzinzadeh Ali Pasha suffered a great defeat against the Crusader fleet under the command of the Austrian Admiral Don Juan. The Ottoman navy was burned for the first time. The consequences of this defeat are short-lived. Sokolu Mehmet Pasha, the Grand Vizier of the period, stated this situation to the Venetian ambassador as follows: "By taking Cyprus, we cut off your arm. You shaved our long beard by burning our navy. The severed arm will not be replaced, but the shaved beard will grow thicker." The Ottoman capital learned that its navy was defeated, thanks to Kilis Ali Pasha, the only sailor who was successful in the battle. Ulus Ali Pasha was appointed admiral, and by the order of Sokolu Mehmed Pasha, the construction of a new navy was initiated. The navy, which was formed a very short time later, sailed to the Mediterranean in the summer of 1572. Venice, which was left alone as Spain concentrated on its struggle in the West again, asked for peace. With the peace treaty signed in 1573, Venice left Cyprus to the Ottoman Empire and agreed to pay war compensation. The next target of this great fleet, which forced Venice to peace in 1573, was the city and castle of Tunisia, which was under the control of Spain in 1574. This city was conquered by Barbaros Hayreddin Pasha in 1534, but was taken back by the German-Spanish armies the following year, as a result of the expedition commanded by the German Emperor and King of Spain, Karl V. Especially with the conquest of Turgut Reis, the entire country of Tunisia came under Turkish rule, and what remained was the city of Tunisia, where the puppet Hafsis ruled under Spanish occupation. The Turkish navy under the command of Ulus Ali Pasha conquered the city on September 13, 1574. In the same year, the state of Tunisia was established. Qu Selim died in 1574 at the age of 50 due to bleeding in his chest cavity as a result of a fall in the bath. After the funeral prayer, he was buried in his tomb in Hagia Sophia Mosque. Selim, who wrote poems under the pseudonym Selimi, also had a divan, Yahya Kemal as. He praised it for having a couplet and a mosque. There is also a couplet saying, "We are the nightingale, the Dem-i Sekvayi Firakis. The fire is cut off. If it passes, the Saba is from our rows. Selim II was also a sultan who was a developer. The repair of the waterways of Mecca-i Mukarrem, the decoration of the Masjid al-Haram with marble domes, the Nicosia Selimiye Mosque, the Aziz Effendi Lodge, and the tower he built overlooking the Navarine port are among his works. The reason why he had it built in Edirne. It is not known exactly why the Sultan chose Edirne as the city where the mosque would be built. Evliya Çelebi wrote in his work Seyahat Nam that the Sultan saw the Islamic prophet Muhammad in his dream and that he asked him to build a mosque in memory of the conquest of Cyprus. More realistic interpretations on this subject point out that there was no need for a new large mosque in Istanbul at that time, that Edirne was the center of Ottoman sovereignty in Rumelia, and that Selim had a special love for the city since his youth. Setu. Hagia Sophia Mosque was repaired again during the reign of Selim. Selimiye Mosque was built by Mimar Sinan during his reign. Like his father, the Sekou, Selim is a poet who left many works in divan literature. The poems that Selim wrote especially for Nurbanu Sultan are considered among the most beautiful works of divan literature. A famous couplet, "We are the nightingale, I muhrik dem I shekvayi firak." The fire would cease if the sun passed from our rose garden. We are the men of the burning spirits of the complaint of separation. The morning wind would cease to fire if it passed through our rose garden. Yahya Kemal, one of the famous poets of the last period too. He said about this couplet of Selim, "It is a poem as beautiful as Selimiye." 2. In the Turkish television series Hurram Sultan, which was broadcast in 2003, Atilla Uluisik played Selim. He was portrayed by Engin Öztürk in the TV series Magnificent Century, which was broadcast between 2011 and 2014